You don't know how much time you got, and doing things you want to do is very precious. So that includes keeping people around you that make you feel good. You want to keep them close, and everybody else, it doesn't matter. I don't want my time dampened with bad thoughts, sad thoughts, stuff like that.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a life podcast. It's a story podcast. It's a bit of an open journal dive into people's lives as I sit and I uncover the real story behind my guest's journey, finding out what makes them who they are, and digging into the parts of their story that we otherwise wouldn't get to hear. Now, I am your host. My name is Ross Tyson. I'm a freelancer of all kinds. I'm a creative director. I've been known to dabble as a filmmaker. I'm quietly trying to build a media empire. But of course, as you can tell in this case, I'm a podcaster because I'm somebody who, just really enjoys talking to people, probably a little too much. But thankfully for me, I can do things like this, where I sit and I talk to people about their lives and their goals and their fears and their dreams and accomplishments and everything in between. So I'll tell you about my guest this week, but first, of course, I have some very lovely sponsors to tell you about because, well, if I didn't, that would be kind of rude of me because that's not how sponsorship deals work. So, first, this episode is brought to you in part by Makers Social, a place that is located right here in the Franklinton Arts District where I happen to make this podcast. It is legitimately right across the street from my studio. So what is it? Well, Maker Social is a DIY project bar where you can get your hands messy with some fun projects with things like woodworking, leatherworking, jewelry making, and painting. And they also host private group events such as team building, corporate events, and birthdays. Now, what's more interesting is, well, you can drink while you do the things if you want, because they also have a full bar loaded with cocktails, local beers, and a very rare bourbon list for you bourbon collectors out there. So, honestly, what's more fun than getting your craft on with some friends while also maybe getting your drink on as well for a night out? So, right now, you can make a reservation on their website, and if you do, you can use the code WYDH, type it into the notes section of your checkout when you make the reservation to get $10 off your project's booking. So, head over to makerscolumbus.com if you want to go check it out. Now, this episode is also brought to you in part by Promo West Productions. And you know the drill by now. I've got some cool shows that you can go and check out. So if you're interested in catching one of these live events, you can maybe check out one of the upcoming concerts that are going down at Newport Music Hall via Promo West. They've got the Taylor Party on Friday, October 14th, Jake Scott on November 9th, the Happy Fits on November 13th, and Whitney on December 8th. So again, all of those concerts are going down at Newport Music Hall. So to purchase tickets, you can visit axs.com, or, as always, for more info on these or any other upcoming shows, you can find all the info you need at promowestlive.com. Oh, excuse me. Hopping in here real quick to tell you about a brand new sponsor for the show, Ope Cold Brew. It's cold brew that uses naturally processed ingredients with no preservatives or additives and roasted right here in Columbus. And guess what? You can get Ope delivered right to your door every Friday if you live in Columbus, or you can do weekly or bi-weekly subscriptions, and if you do subscribe, you save 10%. Otherwise, they have 4-packs available for $20. So if you want to find out more, follow them at Ope Cold Brew, or visit opecoldbrew.com to grab a 4-pack or set up your subscription. Ope, it's dang good cold brew. All right, so this episode I sit down for a very fun conversation with my friend and fellow podcaster, William Mount. Now, this was a special request episode, being, episode 69 and all. William wanted to make sure that he secured this number for this podcast. He wanted to make sure his episode was episode 69. He called his shot like over a year ago. Now, many of you listening to this will likely know of William from his show Sounds of Bustown and his slew of other shows that he has within his Loudcat podcast network, as he makes and help make a lot of different shows, honestly, showing that people like me aren't insane for doing 100 things, and showing me really that it's possible just to have fun and just make anything you want. which is now why you see me launching secondary shows and new ideas and all that sort of stuff. So we dive into how he got started in the podcasting world, of course, how he ended up making so many different ideas, how he juggles it all, like the importance of letting yourself just kind of do whatever you want and dive into creative and fun ideas and just let yourself make the most of the time that we have. And we even dive into some family issues and stuff that he hasn't ever really shared before. So there's lots of good stuff in this one. So let's get to it. It's time to get to know William Mount a whole lot better right here in episode 69 of What You Don't Hear. Nice. To condense everything down
It's the best
to
feeling
this.
in the world.
But okay. Speaking of best feelings in the world.
Yeah.
Ready to make a podcast?
Podcasting,
right?
Sex is good and all, but have you hit stop on a podcast that was really fun?
Have you ever had just a conversation with your other white pals on a podcast, sharing your opinions?
Have you and 4 other white dudes drank alcohol and gave your opinions about such?
Yes.
I know I have. It's a good feeling.
Speaking of good feelings,
Yeah.
And sex and all that stuff, this is episode 69.
Episode 69. See, here's the thing. I like I told you, I told a lot of people about this, and you could do a cruel joke and just make this 68, and then I say 69 a bunch on this episode.
That would be incredible.
And then I would be like, I will burn him to the ground.
That would be incredible.
I will not stop until what
So-
you don't hear is crumbling underneath me.
Until it's what you never heard.
Yeah, you'll never hear it again.
So, it was a year ago?
It was like a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah, it was
I had
a
you on
minute
mine.
ago. I was on yours.
Sounds
And
of Bustown.
Yes. You were, and in that moment, you were because I was like, hey, I'd love to have you on What You Don't Hear. And you were like, I have one request.
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely. And you were like, I have to be episode 69.
That's right.
And I think at the time I was like at 30 or something.
You were in the 30s.
Something
You were in the
like that.
mid-30s. I called my shot. I
You
Babe
did.
Ruthed it.
You did. You were like, when we get there, I am taking episode 69. And guess what? It was written into the annals of time. It was chiseled into stone that you, my friend, were going to get episode
you had
69.
your Excel spreadsheet out, and it was blank, 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 blank for all the other ones, and then 69 was William Mount.
That's exactly what it was.
Nice.
That's exactly what it was. So,
The dumbest joke.
you know what? But you
But
committed to it.
I'm here for it.
You've committed to it your entire life, and we committed to it for a year and a half.
That's true.
make sure this-
I'm wearing a suit specific. I'll try not to keep looking at the camera. I'm not used to the
You
cameras
can
on a
totally,
podcast.
you can totally look at the camera. It'd make the people who are watching
Hey,
feel
everybody.
like you're talking to them.
I dressed up for this.
You did, and I already told you this.
Just letting
but
you know that.
you are officially the best dressed guest
These glasses, not real.
that I have ever. Really? Wow. Well, I need mine to see. So
They just commit to the bit.
I do love that you have dressed to the nines for this show.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big occasion, though.
It is a big
has-
occasion.
It
It's
has
one
been
worth celebrating.
a year and a half worth of build
True.
to getting to episode 69.
Yes.
So we're here. So, William, my friend,
Yes.
officially welcome to the show.
Thank you. It feels real good to be here. This has been in my my wife and I shared calendar as podcast where I'm the guest. I've been so excited about it. And I thank you for even we had it scheduled for a later date, but then I had to move it, and you so graciously were like, yeah, we can make it all work.
I mean, if anybody understands the
I
woes
figured.
of rescheduling podcasts and all that sort of stuff, I know it's you. So I know I know you weren't
you.
carelessly just who cares?
Yeah.
No, it's I'm sure you've
my
dealt
boss
with
called
it.
me on vacation to ask me to go on this thing, and I was like, yes, hold on.
Yes, I can do this, but I have to reschedule my episode 69.
69. He didn't understand the weight of it, but that's fine.
It's can't you just be any number of the
Yeah.
episode? And you're like, no, he's
No.
coming up on 69. He's gonna
gotta
get
be,
there.
yeah.
But we're here, and
here.
we're finally making it happen. Yeah, I did. So I did Sounds of Bustown.
Yeah.
A year and a half or whatever it was
Yeah.
ago.
I don't number mine.
Okay.
But
So I could have been episode
I respect
69.
you. No, you're 100 and something.
Okay.
I only recently started counting because I got close to 200, and now I'm gonna forget again.
That's
And then
fair.
when
You
I
count
get
the
close to
milestones.
and when I get to 300, if I get to 300, then I'll be like, all right, yeah, there's another one. You know what I mean? And then
That's
from there.
fair. That's fair. Okay, so
So-
what's interesting about this is you and I, we already know each other.
Yeah.
I dare say we're friends at
Yes,
least,
yes.
right?
We text on occasion.
We text on occasion.
Yeah.
We Instagram
Yeah, that's
on
right.
occasion.
Yeah.
But we have never really, outside of me being on your show
Yeah.
and maybe, I don't know, a couple random times, maybe, we've never really actually sat down and taken a deep dive, at least
right.
into your story.
No,
for
not
sure.
a whole lot of people have, honestly.
okay,
Which is this
okay.
is I'm excited, but also nervous.
Yeah, which is interesting because I mean, you're a you do multiple
I
shows.
do. Yeah.
And so for your story to never have crept through,
I honestly, like, on my shows, I'm never the focus. Like, I have a couple times on some shows where it's just like I'll bring up a thing that happened to me in the past, but it's not like nothing. I'm not doing a deep dive on any show of my background or like how I had a friend interview me for an episode of the Sounds of Bustown where I was the guest, and so he kind of delved into like more of the history of the Sounds of Bustown than anything. But yeah, that's been about it. But I'm not really. I find it weird to talk about myself as somebody who has literally a network of podcasts. Like, but I'm not really talking about myself. So, and I want to apologize ahead of time. I don't know if I'm going to be a good guest. I know I can be a damn good host. I don't know how good I'm going to be a guest. So.
I think we'll get through it.
Okay,
I think we'll make it work.
All right.
All you got to do right now is open up those floodgates.
You got it.
And officially talk about yourself for the first time.
Right. Okay.
Something I do want to dive into though, because again, I was on your show. Yeah. We talked a lot about my stuff. There's been hints and glimpses of your story that you have shared little tidbits with me, but obviously we literally have been saving it for a year and a half for this show.
Yes.
But one of the first things I'd love to dive into, because I don't think I've ever heard the story, is like, how does, at least first, Sounds of Bustown even begin? Like, how do you even enter the world of podcasting? Like, was that the first show?
That was not the first show. I
started
podcasting in the year of our good Lord, 2011.
Okay. All right.
And
so that was back when podcasts were really kind of just becoming a thing.
It was very like just the idea that anybody can do this.
Right.
And I was like, I'm an anybody. I might be able to do this.
I can do this.
But podcasting was honestly the first thing that like I've had my entire life. As a kid growing up, I was very imaginative. I've always had ideas. What I haven't had is the wherewithal to follow through with those ideas. A lot of like, I'll create stuff, I'll make stuff, but then like, it just fizzles out or I just don't follow through with it. Didn't have a whole, I just didn't believe in myself enough. With podcasting though, it's the thing that I was listening to a lot of podcasts at work. I started listening to podcasts in 2007 with Kevin Smith's podcast. And then I got an iPod Touch and I was just off to the races with that in 2008. So like from 2008 into 2010, I was listening to podcasts all day at work for the most part. Still listen to music and stuff like that. But and that's the luxury of my job is that I can listen to headphones. Not everybody has that. So like I'm listening to like 3-hour episodes of a video game podcast once a week where I'm just like, I would listen to 6 hours of it. And, but like nobody can do that all the time. But so in 2010, towards the end of 2010, I started going, I think I could do something like this. And there's a guy I work with, and like we chat about pop culture stuff all the time. And I was like, what if we started a podcast together where we just recorded after we clocked out on Fridays at work? We call it On the Clock because it's shit we talk about while we're on the clock at work, but now we're talking about it just to make I'm a good company guy, all right?
Still committed to the job.
Please don't. I love my job. Again, I've been there since 2008. And he was like, yeah, let's try it out. So I started, actually, I was listening to a lot of The Nerdist then, Chris Hardwick's podcast, and I just tweeted at him. I just DM'd him and I said, what do you use to record your podcast? And he said, a MacBook Pro and Zoom H4n. And I said, I will get those things.
Nice.
And I got those things. And it was March of 2011 that I started getting stuff. And I remember just like fiddling around with it. And I remember recording like the first thing on audio. And I put it in the computer and I loaded it up in GarageBand, which I still edit with. And I listened back to it and I went, Jesus, I sound like this? And I was like looking at my wife like, this is what I sound like?
Why
like,
you talk to me?
Are you fucking serious? And once I got over that hump, so sorry everybody listening to this about my voice. Once I got over that hump, I was just kind of off the races. We would clock out, we would go into a conference room, we'd chit-chat about, The Walking Dead was huge at the time, so we were both into that. We'd read comics and stuff like that. And then that kind of fizzled out because we both realized we didn't want to be at work any longer than we had to. But, I mean, that went on 70-some episodes.
Okay.
And in that time, I had been not just talking to him, I had an outlet. I was using On the Clock as like an outlet for some of the other interviews I wanted to do. My buddy who was living in LA at the time, he came home and I chatted with him about that stuff. We tried to do a podcast remotely, which was kind of unheard of in 2011.
At that time,
2012. He lived in Hollywood and we were from the town of Richwood, so I called it Wood to Wood because I just thought that was fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
But again, a timing thing, hour difference, be a lot easier now, but it just, again, that fizzled out. There's another podcast that I started. It's still going. It's called Podcast and a Half Shell. Once I realized I could make one podcast, I thought, what's stopping me from making all the podcasts?
You have grown to learn that I am guilty of that.
Yes,
so.
and it's a thing I've had to, they keep popping up. I'm getting ready to start a new one with my wife in a couple of weeks.
I love that.
So by the time this airs, it'll be out. It's called Scream Time.
I freaking love it.
We're going to watch horror movies together. The first episode will be Blair Witch.
Oh, if you ever need a guest, please.
Yeah, I will. Because there's going to be some movies where we don't want to, like, she's like, I'm not watching it. I already got a backup for that. But if a movie comes up, I'll ask you about it.
Please.
So I started Podcast and a Half Shell. That is a recap show for the old 80s, or 89, 90 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, because I just wanted something nostalgic, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of revisit that stuff and chat with my brother-in-law and our friend Tyler. So it was one of these things where once I could find the people, and this might have been another reason why, like, when I was younger, I didn't follow through with any of my ideas. I didn't know that I could ask people to do fun projects with. You know what I mean? It took me a real long time to realize, hey, just reach out and ask somebody. Maybe they want to do something fun and dumb with you.
Right.
So it's never been about, like, people need to listen to this is art or anything like that. It's like, I'm having a good time. I'm staying productive. I'm keeping busy. My mind feels better because I'm being creative to an extent.
Mm-hmm. It's an outlet,
yeah,
right?
It's an outlet.
Yeah.
And so every podcast that I've started from there has been just a fun way to make a thing with somebody that I appreciate and want them to have an outlet. So.
And so when does Sounds of Bustown pop up in that?
Sounds of Bustown starts so my brother-in-law Robbie, he was in a ska band around town called the Shawshank Redemption, and I interviewed them for On the Clock twice. And the lead singer of that band, Jake Huffstetler, he was like, hey man, I really enjoy sitting there talking to you with that, like that. He's like, what if we interviewed band? We kind of had it like together. Like, what if he wanted to do more stuff, kind of like podcasts and like hang out more. And I was like, well, the only way you can really hang out with me anymore is like if we do a podcast together, which is sad. I am trying to fix that. The pandemic helped with that.
I'm dipping my toes into being that person.
Yeah, so, I am fully fledged. Like, what's on the books? Is it, am I doing something at home or am I podcasting?
Hey, cool. We could talk about that, but what if we grab microphones?
What if we listen, I can't be here unless I'm recording this. So sorry. It's not worth my time. It's just I need to be able to have content.
Look at me. I'm in a suit. Yeah. This is not worth my time.
Yeah, come on. So we ended up getting together and kind of kicking around ideas. And I was like, well, I know. The big thing, like what formed the show was, I was running one morning, and we were going to go see Brand New that night, and he was going to be at the show with me. And one of those ideas popped in my head where I'm like, oh, this would be fun. I wish I could interview them. And I was like, well, that's never going to happen. But what if I just interviewed bands around town? And I know Huffstetler's wanting to do something, and he knows bands around town, and we can, I'll produce it. I didn't really talk in the beginning. I was just the guy on the mixer and end of the MacBook. Like, that was me. And I would chime in every now and then to kind of get things back on the rails. Mm-hmm. Or Huffstetler sometimes always had a vendetta or an apology to somebody in the band that I had to like kind of, okay, well, now that that's over with, what about tell us about this thing.
Right.
I was almost solely a producer role. And then he left. He moved to Chicago with his now wife, Katie, and performed their wedding ceremony last year in Chicago. It's pretty dope. Felt real good, yeah. But they left Chicago, and everybody's like, are you going to still do it? I was like, yeah, probably. And then I had to like get really out of my comfort zone and continue the podcast on my own and talk to people. And so
stepping into that real host role.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was already hard for me to go to shows. Like the first band I ever asked to be on the podcast, we've only recorded one episode at this point. And he wasn't able to make it to this show, but it was a Damn the Witch Siren show at King Avenue 5. And I had to go up, and I was trying, it's one of these things, I always am afraid people are going to think that I'm a creep. And it was just like, I swear, I could be a creep. I am not a creep. So I approached Bobby Kitten at what was then King Avenue 5, is now Natalie's Grandview, in the area they were setting up. She was grabbing a drink, and I go, hey, my buddy Jake messaged you guys about being on our podcast, The Sounds of Bustown. She goes, oh, yeah, we'd be down to do that. And I was like, cool. I just wanted to just confirm that, and then we could reach out to you guys. She's like, yeah, no problem. I stayed and watched their set, immediately blown away. But, yeah, that was like the first time where I was like, I do not feel comfortable. And that was the great thing about Jake on the show, was like, we would go to shows together. He would be the butterfly. Me and Katie would hang out because we were both like, we'll be to public places, but like we had that in common where we were both like, no, you can go talk to everybody. We'll just hang out in the corner here.
Right.
And so he would go up to bands and ask people and stuff like that. Like it was a real good dynamic that we had going on there. And then when he left, it's just like, it's all up to you. You got to keep it going. It's like, I think I can do this. And then from there, I mean, at that point, people are messaging me constantly, which is nice. You know, I didn't have to really reach out to anybody. Every now and then I still do.
Right.
But it's me just checking back in with people. So.
Right. So, okay. So what was that like? Walk me through you stepping into that host role. Because you said it was like, that's out of my comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm assuming like.
Yeah.
Were you very like kind of quiet, introverted type of,
or
no,
was it
more so?
See, here's the thing: in high school, I was voted most outgoing because
Okay.
I went through this weird slump. Like in high school, when I'm around people, like friends and stuff like that, I'll just be an idiot. I don't care. I'm not like doing anything crazy, but like I'll say off the cuff dumb stuff that if I can make myself laugh, good enough.
I'm going to be on episode 69 of a podcast.
Exactly.
Sometime in the future.
that should have summed up everything here. But once I got out of high school, and I was, my wife and I had bought a house when we were 20, and we were just I was just doing nothing but really working all the time. I didn't have that group anymore to hang out with to kind of like let that, like myself come out of a shell like that. And that's that's why I got into podcasting. It was like I needed a change and an outlet and stuff like that. And that kind of helped me step into it. So when I thought, oh, I could possibly do this, I should be all right to do it. It felt better than I think I thought it was going to because I doubted myself too much, I guess, in that case.
Right.
And then I'm very inquisitive when it comes to people who make music. That's one of the whole reasons that it started. It's like, I could never make music. I don't have the patience for it, and I don't have the skill of like breaking. I love music, but so with the Sounds of Bustown, which I've done podcasters and stuff like that around town too, because I like giving a shout out to like local podcasters and stuff like that. I just have a very inquisitive mind when it comes to how things are done. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I started, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. You know what I mean? I got 2 episodes in, and I was like, yeah, this is fine.
You found the comfort level. You're like, oh, wait a second. This seems strange of like hosting a podcast. Yes. Okay, but like then you realize, wait, I like talking to people.
I do like
and I like
asking
a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So like this will work.
Right.
So, okay, another thing that like I want to dive into is, I mean, just the fact that you have created and either run or host or help run and host multiple shows at this point. How many are you, and including the one you're about to launch?
Am I counting like Brunch with Billy and Root Beer Minute?
Yes.
Okay. Almost around 10.
Okay.
Like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. It depends on. The hard thing about a podcast is that you have the love to do it. Getting other people to share that same excitement with you and scheduling is a very hard thing. Now, there's podcasts that I've started. I was helping produce a podcast for a girl in Australia. She's originally from Utah, but she wanted to make an emo podcast. We were just like Twitter friends, and because we both like brand new. And I was like, hey, I'll produce it for you. I'll tell you what to do, and all you need to do is send me the file. I'll edit it and put it on the internet for you. And I was like, as long as you're cool with me, like using it as my network. She's like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So like, she did about 10, 12 episodes, kind of fizzled out. She just, she went back to school, didn't have time. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That happens. But just finding the people that also share the same passion has been like the hard thing. So like, all the podcasts that are still running, that have been running for the last 5 or 6 years, it's because I'm like bothering them generally to like, hey, we need to put out another episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
so all of that balance is so much that like, I do want us to even dive more into how figuring those things out, because that's definitely something that I've ran into where I'm like, oh man, like I have this fun idea that I really want to do with somebody or these people or whatever, but you can't. People's interest in something that you're interested in is not always going to match that level, right? Yeah. And you can't force it, because then it's like, what is the quality of the show really going to be?
Right, exactly. If you're not into it, like I'm into it, then there's no reason to do it.
But like the main core piece of that is, and I don't know if I've told you this before. But I wanted to make sure I emphasized it here, is that like you like starting basically the podcast network and doing all of these shows has been such a source of inspiration for me.
Nice.
Because you're making it possible.
Yeah.
You're showing me that like, oh yeah, it is okay
Yeah.
if you have several different show ideas that feed into different things and different, ideas and whatever. And yeah, you can commit to each of those. And if you can figure out how to do it, just do it.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of times where I would sort of overthink. I'd be like, man, no, I should really only do one. Why would I express myself then? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, but I want to do these other things.
Yeah.
I want to do this. And there's probably at least 5 other show ideas that I'm sitting on right now that I'm like, I want to find a way to start these. And like we were talking about before we were recording, which at the time of this releasing, my other show should be out, the improv comedy show. That was a perfect case of that, where it was an idea that I was sitting, I'm like, man, okay, What You Don't Hear has been up and running for, I think, going on 3 years at this point. Yeah.
Nice.
And so I'm like, okay, I've got that system and process down.
Yeah.
I know how I approach
It's
and create
routine
that
now.
show.
It's in the background. For some reason, I find the gumption to release an episode of Sounds of Bustown every 2 weeks. I don't really know how it happens anymore. I just know that pieces are falling into place, and it's just working on the autopilot.
It's
now
sort of
at
the
this
momentum
point.
thing, right? You get the ball rolling,
Yes.
and then it's like, okay, cool. Now we've kept it rolling, and that's exactly what it felt like with this show. So I was like, you know what? 3 years of doing a show is proof that I think I know how to handle doing a show. So you know what? I think you should let yourself create that extra thing. So that's what I did with the improv show, and it was nice because it's yes, you're starting something new, but you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from a new basis of knowledge that you've gained through other things that you've done.
Right.
So now you know how to better approach this, and I could create a better structure.
Yes.
Because that's anybody that I have told, hey, I'm doing another podcast, they're like, how?
Yeah.
Do you have more hours in your day?
Well, you
Blah, blah,
are
blah.
constantly doing things all the time outside of this podcast. So that is a valid question.
For sure. Yeah. And I absolutely understand. I'm like, oh, yes, I absolutely know why you're asking that, right? Because, podcasting is not the only thing that I'm balancing.
Right.
But what let me do, the improv show was I just sat and it was like, okay, cool. I got the spark of the idea, which is the exciting part.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this sounds fun.
Yeah.
But my brain always goes to
Did you come up
logic.
with a name yet?
I did. It's called Whose Life Is It Anyway?
Ooh, I like that.
So it's basically this show if we were making everything up about your life story.
Oh my God.
And then using improv games to
Have
build
I been
that
doing
off
that
of.
this whole time?
Oh my God. Maybe this is a big
No, I
promotion for Whose Life. Oh, damn it. I was just going to release this as episode 1 of that. Be like, I had no idea the whole time.
That's good, though. I'm going to lie on the next one.
That's honestly, yes, perfect. Honestly, I'll have you on Whose Life, and then you can lie away.
Hell yeah.
You can lie about everything.
I'll let you know the childhood I wanted.
I'm so down.
All right.
I'm so down for that.
Season 2, baby.
Yes, season 2,
All
you're going to be on.
All right.
We have made another deal on another podcast,
Yes.
officially.
Yeah.
But, when I was sitting and thinking of the idea for Whose Life, it immediately, yes, it was exciting. But I immediately went to logic and practicality. I'm like, okay, if I did another show, how would I structure it? How would I do it? So the answer is, okay, I'll do it in seasons so it's easier to manage.
Yep.
I will batch record all of my episodes.
Yep.
I have 2 other guests with me on each show, and we each rotate positions. So that means I can get 3 episodes out of one recording
Very
session.
smart. Yeah.
So it's in just a matter of minutes, I was able to kind of break down okay, how can I logically do this?
Yeah.
And that's always my answer to so many people when it is how do you balance so many things? It's it's not that I'm not a genius at all.
No.
It's just well, no, it's just put some structure to the thing and make a little bit of a plan. So then it's I know that all it took was for me to get 12 episodes for a season. It took me about 3 weeks to get those 12 episodes.
Yeah.
That's booking them, recording them, and putting them together.
Yeah.
And then that means I only spent about a month worth of my energy to get 12 weeks worth of a show.
Heck yeah.
So then I can sit and it's easier
That's
to
smart.
balance out recording all of that. And then I also timed it and scheduled it in an appropriate way to where I knew by the time I was getting done with recording those, it would be time to record the next session or the next set of What You Don't Hear.
Yeah.
So it was okay, I can get this done. So then I'm not sitting and running it through my head of oh my God, I've got What You Don't Hear this day and I've got Whose Life this day and blah, blah, blah.
And that is my life.
Right. Which is obviously fair when you're putting a ton of stuff on your plate.
Yeah.
But that's where my head always goes to okay, but it's the structure you're putting into it. It's you're still going to be paying attention to how you're scheduling things. Even if you are doing it one day's this and another day's this and another day's that, it's not you're panicking last minute
Yeah.
of like, oh my God, tonight at 8, can someone come over so we can record a thing? You're still, you've got a structure to it that you're following it, which yes, you might be doing a bunch of stuff at once, but the fact that you are putting a little bit of a plan to it, that's why you can balance all those things.
Yeah.
And that's always my answer to anyone who's like, how are you doing so many things, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I'm just kind of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of things that I want to be doing that I'm not.
Exactly.
Because I deemed it unnecessary or kind of, at least for the moment, impossible for me to take on.
Well, and you rank, there's priority.
Right.
So what takes priority in your life? Time management is something, I'll go to my grave or urn. I'd like to be cremated, set it on record.
Right here on the podcast.
I don't think I'll ever figure out by the time, you know what I mean? I just hope to be good enough to think about things ahead of time. My wife and I have a app that we use for joint scheduling, and it's called Cozy. And if I forget to put something in the Cozy, like I just did recently, it's like, that's on me. Like, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I should have known better at this point.
Right.
Because that's like our worlds are, they're not too different, but like, you know, she's a teacher, so she's got a lot of stuff going on after school as well. She helps out with the drama stuff. And so I try to then, you know, when she's got like stuff going on after school, I try to schedule those nights for my podcast and stuff like that. That way, the nights that I'm not doing stuff, she's not doing stuff, we can actually chill out together.
Right, exactly.
But it's just one of those time management things that like, it's still not, there's never enough time. So it's just very difficult.
Well, and that's the thing is like that, and I don't necessarily, I don't know if anybody can be perfect at time management necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not, but I'm just very strategic with my time management. Where it's like, again, I'm not going to tell myself, yes, I'll do that if I don't know how I can do it first. Even if I don't know step 1 to 10, I still am like, well, can I start step 1 through 4 and reasonably take that on? And then again, just like I said, like scheduling all the episodes of one show within a time frame, getting them done by the time I need to record, shows for the other show, right? You know, and so it's like, okay, cool. Like compartmentalizing and breaking things down in that way allows me to manage those multiple things because obviously most people just see the results of all the work that everybody's putting in, right? Nobody necessarily knows outside of me explaining it here. In the next couple months, they're just going to be seeing me talk about the 97 podcasts I have, just like they see you talk about the 97 podcasts.
Nobody knows I'm getting up at 4 a.m. before work to edit podcasts before I go into work and then edit them on my lunch break. You know what I mean? Like all the background stuff that happens.
Everyone's just like, how does it just exist? How did you do it?
I don't sleep at all. That's how.
I'm struggling.
I get 5.5 hours of sleep every night.
But it's like, again, it's also being intentional and purposeful with your time. Like you're choosing, like, I need to get up a little earlier.
I'm prioritizing this over sleep, which is fine. I've never been. I've always been a morning person. Now, actually, this year I decided to squeeze in a half marathon.
Nice. Okay.
And I was just like, I need to run again because like when I first started Sounds of Bustown, I was in the midst. Like from 2013, 2014, 2015, I ran 2 marathons each of those years.
Wow.
And then I took a break in 2016. I just did a half because I had, everything that was going on. And this was on top of like, I don't just do podcasting. Like I was working like 50, 60 hours of work as well at times. And it was just like, okay, I need to, that's why I stopped doing the marathon stuff. It's like, well, I don't have to prove anything to myself anymore. I know I could do that if I wanted to. I was like, I'll just run for fun. I never run for fun. I have to have a race. That's why I signed up for the half marathon this year. I was like, I know. Right? I was just like, okay, now I need to force myself to do it. So I'll sign up for everything. But just squeezing that in now with everything going on has been difficult. And I obviously am not prioritizing that the way I should, but I'm still doing it. And it just kind of, I'm realizing I don't need to cram as much, honestly, with the other stuff to get that done as well.
Yeah.
Which has been nice.
Right. So. And so even bringing it back around, like seeing you juggle all of these things, even if it was from afar, I was like, that's okay. This is reinforcing.
This dude's got 10 podcasts. I can have one more.
Yeah, I think I can do a second one if I'd like. So truly, it was like a source of inspiration where I was like, okay, like this is somebody doing the thing. And making it work and showing me like, oh yeah, you can just do the thing. Because any other like example like is like, you see like the hugely famous large podcast network.
Right.
And it's easy to downplay those in your mind and be like, well, they have a team that's helping them edit and produce all their
shows. They have a lot of people behind the
They have a lot of people behind. It's not just like the host who's doing all of the things. And of course, when all of their episodes are getting listened to by hundreds of thousands of people and they're making potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's easy to justify like, oh yeah, I'm a person who's going to make 10 different shows. Yeah. But it was nice to see it on a realistic, like tangible level. Like this is somebody I know.
Yeah.
Who is doing this in the town that I live in, right?
Yeah.
Of like, oh, okay, yeah. You don't only have to give yourself permission to do something once there's like the proof of like, oh no, when you're like huge and famous is when you're able to do all the things. Like you can do all the things at any point in time.
And that's it. I think it just depends on what you go into doing the thing for. Are you doing the thing to become famous or rich from it? Or are you doing the thing because you need to do it? Because if you don't, your brain will crush you to death with depression and anxiety. Because that's kind of why I'm doing it for the latter. I don't care how many people listen to this thing or watch this thing that I'm doing. I need to do it. Like I will do, if I think it's dumb and funny, I need to get it out there. And I do not care about who sees it or what happens. My motto has always been, I made this thing, it's out in the world. If you want to listen to it and enjoy it, that's on you. If not, cool. Yeah. That's fine. I've got 700 and some episodes over the last 11 years. You know what I mean? Produce a podcast with all the different podcasts I've ever done. And it's this thing where it's just like, I didn't do that because I want somebody to discover me and my talents and stuff like that. I did that because I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't anything other than I wanted to make a thing with somebody, or, this is going to, we're going to get famous from this. Yeah. Would I like it? Hell yeah. Of course. I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. every morning now and go to work anymore. But yeah, I would love to. I love that I'm able to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I have the means to do it. And that's why I've stayed at my job for you know what I mean? I haven't tried to pursue anything. It's just like, no, I've got a good balance. I still like my work, but I like this fun activity that I get to do outside of it too.
I get the feeling that I think you and I are very similar in the way of like, if we sit on what ifs too long, it drives us crazy.
Absolutely.
Like, is that kind of what? Yeah. Yes. Because that's exactly where I am.
I used to do that as a kid all the time. I would play the what ifs game. I would get my hopes up. They would get dashed, and then I get super depressed. So I stopped watching baseball for so long. Indians could have won the 97 World Series, could have won the 95 World Series. They did not. I stopped watching. I was like, why would I put so much emotional weight into something that I have zero control over? And so that, like, from that moment, I don't want to say that was like a defining moment emotionally and mentally for me. That came like years later in high school. But like, it was one of these things where it's just like, why would I rely on something outside of my control for happiness or enjoyment? Like, why can't I just do that myself and have the, if I'm lucky, like I said, I get, again, to have the means to be able to do it. So, but I don't know. I'm a bad guest because sometimes I go on tangents and I don't remember if I answered the thing we were talking about.
No. Tangents make you a good guest. Okay.
I should know that by now.
I would much rather.
Sometimes I get lost in the sauce where I'm just like, what?
No. See, remember, the roles are reversed right now. You get to talk. You get to just say all the things. How important do you feel like that freedom of like fulfillment is? Because I don't know if a lot of people let themselves go into that realm. Like, does that make sense? Is it like how important is it? Like, so, what we're talking about is you think about these what ifs. You have an idea. You're like, man, that'd be fun to do. I'd like to do that. And you let yourself figure out how to pursue it.
It's amazing. It's one of the best feelings. When you pull it off, I had this dumb idea to review root beer. Because I like root beer. I used to not drink, and now I drink just because it's a podcast. But I started this, and I wanted to do something on video, something quick, and so I created this thing called Root Beer Minute. It was like born off of one of the podcasts and a half shell. We were joking around about stuff, and I said I was going to create a root beer video show. There's another, a big source of inspiration for me in podcasting has been Justin Mcilroy, who runs, he's like one of the Mcilroy brothers from My Brother and Me and Sawbones and all that stuff. I got to work with him at the podcast festival, which was dope in Columbus a few years ago. But he created this thing called Things I Bought at Sheetz. And he would buy a thing at Sheetz. Him and his buddy would do a video thing. He would take a bite of it or drink it, or he would use the thing that he bought, and then his buddy would have to guess like how he felt about it and there were like 5 or 6 minute videos, very funny. And I was like, I think I could do a video thing that a minute. I can definitely do something on my phone at this. This was 2017 when I first started making them. It took me 4 years to put them out because I was like, I'll wait till I get 10. And I wasn't pushing it. I'm just like, when the moment happens, it happens, and I'll create it. This led to me buying a green screen at one point.
Of course.
Because I was walking through a Giant Eagle. And I was walking through a Kroger, and they have a root beer version and a sarsaparilla version from this brand called Sioux City. And I thought it would be funny to me if I was reviewing the Sioux City root beer while there was another person dressed as a cowboy, also me, reviewing the sarsaparilla. And so I learned how to, that's been the nice side effect of this, is that I've learned how to do a lot of fun things.
Yeah.
And so I bought the green screen, I filmed it, I have to film both of it, I edited it together, and at work I was going to edit it at break. And I loaded it up, and I got the shots to line up, and I saw me sitting next to a cowboy version of me, who's also featured in the Damn the Witch Siren video of Ultra Culture, sitting next to one another, and I laughed for the rest of my break. Like, I grabbed my computer, and I walked around, and I started showing people. I'm like, look how dumb this is. This is so fucking funny. Like, moments like that where it's just like, I had this idea, and here's what it actually looks like, was one of the best, funniest feelings I've ever had.
Yeah, that for me is sometimes all I need.
Yeah.
Is I just need to get an idea out of my brain.
Yep.
I need a version of it to exist in the real world.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Because, again, in my head, it's probably not. Like, It's probably a little bit more than what I'm capable of, but I'm not going to... I could nitpick all day, but I'd never release anything.
Yeah.
So that's something I found out, like, when I talk to musicians. A lot of musicians are like, we just had to put it out. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure you know this working with a lot of musicians as well. It's just like, we could sit here all day and nitpick it, but it would...
We're always going to find something that could be better. But it's like, I'd rather be like doing the thing and getting better at it simultaneously than never doing the thing, never having it exist, and thinking about how perfect it could be.
Right.
Because then you're just spinning your tires. There's like there's a quote that I recently came across, and I was like, oh, I actually love the way this is put. And it's something along the lines of, if you wait to leave town until every light is green, you're never going to go anywhere.
I like that.
And so it's that perfectionism idea, right? Like, I'll drive down the road when all these lights are green at the exact same time, so I can just go straight through. That's when I'll go. Yeah. Well, that's never gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen,
right? You're gonna get through even half the green lights, but the last one's gonna be red. You know what I mean? So it's like, it is that battle that I have learned, and it sounds like you have too, which just gets me amped talking to you about this stuff. Is because it makes me feel like I'm not insane and alone, right?
You're not insane at all.
But it's like just letting yourself lean into, like, I have an idea, and if I can see it in a feasible way for me to pull off, or it's something I want to learn or something I want to try, just go and do it.
Yeah.
Just go and do it. And like, I've said this on this show 100 times, so guys, if you've listened to even a remotely amount of these episodes, I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but I subscribe so heavily to the idea of just trying things.
Yeah.
Because I also believe there's a lot of value in learning that you might not want that thing as bad as you thought you did. Because there's been stuff that I'm like, oh man, that's such a cool idea. And then when I start to do it, or I do a form of it, I'm like, oh wait, my fulfillment was just getting the idea out of my head. Right. I don't actually really want to do that thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to start that coffee shop.
Yeah.
I just thought making the branding for the coffee shop and seeing it, that was actually cool enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like it goes back to, like, even, I don't know, just drawing something as a kid, or, you know what I mean? Like, small imaginative things like that. You're not necessarily, it doesn't have to be created to be this big thing. Right. Sometimes we still need to just flush out those ideas or feelings just to get them out. Yeah. And once they're, like, expelled, whether for better or for worse, it's sort of just like, oh,
it's out in the world now. Was the thing. I can breathe a sigh of relief because this thing is out there now, and I don't have to think about it. Tinkering around. I have a podcast that has been tinkering around my brain. I've recorded stuff for it. It's been since 2019. I've got parts of a first episode created. It's called, do you remember Chris Gaines? It's not called that, but do you remember Chris Gaines?
I don't know if I do.
Do you know Garth Brooks?
Yes.
Do you remember in September of 1999 where Garth Brooks released an album called Chris Gaines' Greatest Hits, where he dressed as alter ego Chris Gaines?
I did
and released
not
a
know
whole
that.
album of songs that were under the banner of this Australian singer Chris Gaines.
I did not know any of that.
So 6 months after that happened, he just didn't do the Chris Gaines thing anymore because at the time it got extremely panned. Like the sound that he made is kind of where country's at now, but he was ahead of his time. I've fantasized about being rich and winning the lottery. Again, not my goal with this, but I've never fantasized about being so bored of being rich that I have to create an alter ego to live another life.
Yeah, very fair.
But I know why he did it. His fans weren't gonna, if he made those songs the way they sound, then they weren't gonna like it. So he needed another outlet, another thing to do. Now, my podcast is a true crime podcast called Where is Chris Gaines? Again, I had a teaser out. I took it down just because I was paying $5 a month at Libsyn and I wasn't putting an episode out.
Yeah.
I have a cast lined up. Actually, one of them moved out of state, so now I have to recast, but that's not a big deal. But again, this idea still haunts me, and I know part of me needs to take a break from another podcast, or I need to get a guest host for Sounds of Bustown for about 6 months so I can bang this thing out. I've got a 6-episode arc already. I've got it all, you know what I mean? Like, it's all in my head.
Yeah.
And I need to do it. I just need the time. Like, I messaged people, everybody's into it, you know what I mean? The pandemic hit, which did take away some of the momentum. But, like, I went down to Nashville for a Chris Gaines Fest that was thrown on the 20th anniversary, and I interviewed people there. I have a bunch of audio from it.
Dude.
You know what I mean? Like, it's in there, and it is forever haunting me.
Wow.
If ghosts only linger on this mortal plane because of something unfinished business, this is why I will be lingering around, and you'll see me with a fucking bag and a microphone and a Zoom 6 and headphones going,
Podcast.
"Where is Chris Gaines? What happened to him? Don't mention Garth Brooks or you'll ruin the joke." Like, I'm never going to mention Garth Brooks on the thing. It's just
so good.
And I learned so much history about Chris Gaines. Like,
Dude.
I went in like a fucking deep dive. And it's still, you know what I mean? It's still in there. I will get it out. I just need the time.
Please do it.
So-
Oh, my goodness. Please do it.
Yeah.
See?
I bought a domain.
Dude.
I bought a domain. I don't know how to do website shit. I haven't updated Sounds of Bustown since like the end of 2020. Well, it's pretty. Nobody goes to websites anymore.
No one's going to a website anymore.
But I bought a domain thinking I'll make a fucking GeoCities website that makes
Dude.
it seem like this thing's been up since 1999.
You and I are so similar
But
in these ways.
it's
of
that
just
thing where it's like
yes.
it builds and builds and builds and builds and just like I have to fucking get this out of me.
It's a fun
I
idea,
have the
like-
first episode still on my computer. I have not deleted. You know what I mean? Like, it's not finished. But another big part of the problem was that I got into it going, I'm not good at writing. You know what I mean? I realized I'm like, I'm not good at writing. So I need to work with a team of people to flesh that out more, to make it, you know what I mean? I don't want to half-ass this thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think it's funny enough
Yes.
and a good enough idea that I just need to find the right people. So if you're listening to this and you want to, you think you could help me write the 6-episode podcast series for no money. This is just for funsies. At William Mount on Instagram.
This is so... Honestly, I want to find out if there's any way that I can help with
Dude,
that. Because
if you
it
can help me
sounds like
flesh
a
this stuff
blast.
out and get like I said, I've got the episodes already fleshed out. I've got the characters. I just need the in between, the dialogue and all that. You know what I mean?
good.
So if we want to start Zoom meeting once a week, and
my
if you
goodness.
want to help me flesh this out, I don't want to put a third podcast on your shoulders.
Well, remember, I think I actually reached out to you for a very similar thing of like the apocalypse
And
show.
I have a bunch of ideas still, but I was just like, I'll get these to him at some point.
And clearly there's not a rush.
And then I was like, I'll wait till you get.
But it's like I'm in the exact same boat with like that idea, right?
Yeah.
Of like, okay, there's this like fiction-based podcast series that I want to make and all this sort of stuff. So obviously it requires more than just like grab a mic, grab some friends, sit down and go.
Yeah.
There is some structure. There's some creative structure. There's some storytelling.
This will be something unlike anything I've done with podcasts, and that's why I'm like, I need to make sure it's right. I could have shit 6 episodes out. You know what I mean? Like,
and just been like, whatever. But see, that's the point though. Is like, yes, the intention or purpose isn't to make it huge and perfect and big and all this sort of stuff, but you still want to do it correctly.
There's an execution that I want to at least attempt to pull off. Now, if I pull that off, who knows? But it's the thought of, you know what I mean? It's if I'm going to do it, I got to do it this way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to at least be, I have to try to thread the needle, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, can we talk about how, has it been difficult?
We can talk about whatever you want. That's why I'm here.
Has it been difficult or simple, or what has it been like to find other people to join some of these projects?
Surprisingly easy, and that makes me sad that I should have started a longer time ago.
But I think I need to hear this. So why? How has it been easy? It's just like, I have friends who want to be involved in things, or is it like
things pop up and then I kind of get an idea, or I'll put feelers out. So I started a Saved by the Bell. I was at work. We were making fun of a new guy, calling him Slater, and I started rattling off a bunch of stuff about Saved by the Bell to some coworkers. And I was like, man, I know a lot about Saved by the Bell. I bet you that show doesn't hold up that well. It'd be fun to do a podcast about Saved by the Bell.
You rewatch them and review them,
We're
right?
rewatching them and we're breaking them down like scene by scene. We're doing a deep dive. That's called The Max. And so I put feelers out, and Juliana, who I'm friends with, her husband Pete was in a band called Yellow Paper Planes, and that's, you know what I mean? Everybody I'm working with is because I've met them through somebody else, pretty much from another podcast. Pete is now one of the co-hosts on Dreams and Jams. So, you know what I mean? It just kind of spirals out. Juliana's like, me and my brother watch Saved by the Bell and have a trivia thing every year around Christmas. Like, that's something they do as a family tradition. I was like, cool, we're going to do this. I was like, you're going to host it. I'll just hang back. You know what I mean? I'll jump in there every now and then, some dumb shit. But, she does a bunch of research. She breaks down the episode. You know what I mean? Like, it's just about finding the right thing for the right person. And I feel like Juliana and I have a rapport where we don't have to talk about Saved by the Bell anymore at this point. You know what I mean? We know each other well enough, and we could just have a fucking bullshit podcast at this point.
Yeah.
Because of how in sync we are with things. My buddy Cy, I met him through my buddy Jake, who was in LA. He was one of the ones on the improv thing. The first time I ever met Cy, the second time I ever hung out with Cy, we went to go see Kevin Smith do a live Q&A in Akron. And this was 8 years before we were ever going to start a podcast together. But it was one of those things where you meet people and you're like, you're fucking cool. Or like, we jive. And we're we're on the campus in Akron, and we can't find the hall that Kevin Smith's going to be in. And we pull over to ask some guy who's walking around. He's like a gym bag, like he just left the workout or something like that. And we're like, hey, do you know where whatever hall is? And he told us to like go over the bridge, and then he said to go over I don't know if it was another bridge, but he kept repeating the same direction. And we all just started laughing at him because we were like, we're confused now. You don't know what's going on. And like from then, like Cy and I have been like in sync with stuff. Like we have the same nerd vibe about things. He's usually in Star Wars. But like we were hanging out a bunch more, and he's like, I need an outlet. I was like, well, let's start a podcast together. I was like, we'll have people send in topics, and then we'll just talk about it. And the podcast will go as long as we talk about the conversation. And that's turned into us now. When the pandemic hit, we switched to doing live streams. That was like one of the big things where I learned how to figure out live streams. And then we turned it into a call-in show. And then, now we're back to sitting in the same room together. And now it's just us like talking about, it's back to that, like we're talking about pop culture stuff and kind of what we've been, Cy gets into some zany things, which is very fun.
Okay.
He's a kindergarten teacher now. And like just those interactions are fun enough to talk about. So
absolutely,
it's just finding the right people to do the right thing with, or just, the people in my life. Like, I don't want to burden anybody else with these podcasts like I burden myself with them. But, like, if it comes up and, you want to work with somebody, it's just literally reaching out and asking, like, hey, I've got an idea. You in? No? Yes? No? Okay.
That's always the part I actually feel like I stop myself in.
Yeah.
It's like I have this strange, like, confidence with a lot of my ideas, but I always feel like I'm immediately going to burden somebody if I'm like, hey, do you want to be a part of this?
And that's the thing. I don't want to burden anybody with it, which is a lot of reason why I make the thing and I put it out, but I don't really push it. You know what I mean? Like I'll usually make a social media post, but I don't like, I don't want to come across as like pushy about anything. It's just like, again, it boils down to, I made this thing. If you want to enjoy it, here it is. If not, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Out of all the shows that are now on Loudcat, like the network.
Yeah.
How many of them, like, was every single one a show that you started and then got somebody else involved
people have had ideas for things, and I've been like, well, I can produce that for you. I'll figure out how to get it on the internet.
Yeah.
Another show that just joined the network is Revolution Rosie's, and I've been, friends with Vivian and Betty Rue for like, I don't know, a few years now. I had in 2017 on Sounds of Bustown, I went through and did, for September, because September 30th is International Podcast Day. And so I went through that month and just did all local podcasts. And so I've known Vivian because she's in Electrical Circus. And so it was one of those things where I guested on their podcast at one point. I had them on mine, and we've been, we listen to each other's podcasts and stuff like that. And then they asked me, like, can we join your network? I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have much to offer other than just like saying your name at the end of things. And like, now I make them a little clip for every episode. But like outside of that, it's just like, of course. Yeah. Like I'd be delighted. And they do all the editing and publishing. Like, I don't have to worry about that.
That's
it's just
great.
like, are you on the network? I'm like, yeah, cool.
That's like, I want to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because like, I know there's a handful of shows that I'm probably going to be making and working on that are coming from me, but there's so many people that I've talked to who are like, I have the show idea. And of course, I'm always the person that's like, yes, let's fucking.
I messaged Christine after your episode with her. I was like, I will help you produce it if Ross doesn't want to do it.
Yes. And like, I'm always that way. I'm always like, oh my gosh, yes, you can do it. And like, and it's always in the back of my mind where I'm like, okay, I am. Because again, there's a handful of shows that I'm either working on or have kind of in my back pocket that I'm like, I want to do this at some point. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, there's a de facto network already there. But I'd also love for it to be a platform for other people of like, hey, I've got an idea, I've got the drive and the means to do it, but I don't exactly have all the capabilities of doing it. Like maybe I need to come and borrow some gear, or I don't know how to get it on the internet and promote it and brand it or whatever. And it's like, okay, those are all things that I like doing. But I want some of the opportunities where I don't have to be the host of the show.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm excited to run.
I love editing and producing and stuff like that. Like, it's something I didn't realize brings me a lot of, like, joy. So that's why I always tell people, start a podcast. I'll help you out. Like, I'll do all the background work. I was doing a podcast for a couple who, they were the other part of that improv group that I was telling you about before we started recording. They're big Golden State Warriors fans because they're both from San Francisco. And they were living in Sacramento at the time. And they're like, hey, we want to start a podcast about, the Golden State Warriors. I was like, cool, I'll produce it for you. I edited the episodes. I sent it back to them. They uploaded to the internet, all that stuff. Like, it's cool. I like getting to just kind of help out. It's a weird feeling where I'm like, I'll help out with that. Like, I like to help out with that. Same. I don't know why, but like, I just like to be involved. Yeah. And it's nothing other than just like me helping you create something and get it out the door. Does
the idea of like putting things and creating things into like an oversaturated market ever like deter you at all? Or are you just like,
I don't think anything about that because it'll find its audience.
Yep.
If it's going to have one or if it's not going to find it. Again, it goes back to that like I don't care. Like it's that like there's already too many of these. Yeah, probably, but I want to do my thing on it.
And so I'm so happy that's that's honestly kind of the answer that I'm looking for.
What if I was just like, I've not done a lot of. You just heard about my dumb true crime podcast, and there are a fucking million of those.
And see, so I love that you said that because even though it's a battle that I will go through, I'm not going to sit and pretend like I never overthink something of like, I am like, oh, there's a billion shows just like this one. Why would I do this? But then I immediately can kind of go into, because I want to.
Yeah.
But the important thing, and I think this is like what you're explaining also, is like there is an audience for everything.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in something and like something, somebody else out there does as well. And even if there's 100 other shows just like yours or 100 other creations just like yours, someone might like your take the best.
Exactly.
And so that's always the thing that I remind myself of constantly is I'm like, I will initially have those battles where I'm like, is my improv show really going to be like, does it matter that much? Like, but then I'm like, well, no, I want to do it. Exactly. I want to have fun with it. I know other people that would like to do it. And there's going to be somebody. Right. There is an audience for it.
Yeah. When I'm making something, I don't think about that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. When we started the Sounds of Bustown, I, for a hot second, looked and was like, was anybody else in Columbus doing something like this? I couldn't find anything. Literally 3 days before we dropped our first episode, another group was doing. They weren't doing at the time. They weren't doing local Columbus music other than just playing it in between talking about national music. So I thought, okay, not a big deal. That was the only time I've ever been worried about it. 6 months, 8 months later, they kind of changed their format more to interviewing local musicians and playing their songs, kind of like what we were doing.
Right.
Now there's like 3 or 4 of them at some point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, okay, they do their thing, I do my thing. I pointed people towards their thing. One of them isn't doing it anymore, but like, I don't listen to it, but I still point people towards the other one. It's like, here's another outlet for you to go to because they have their audience.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And the interesting thing about that, and this is something that another thing that I try to remind myself of often, is like what my version becomes might change over time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might begin as one thing, but also it's
all
like...
All podcasts do.
Exactly. It's like things are going to grow and evolve and change and all that sort of stuff. But again, my version of something might be, because it's unique to me.
Exactly.
It's unique to you, the creator, right? It's still unique in that aspect.
Yeah.
Even though tons of stuff is going to be similar.
Sure. Like when you submit a podcast, for anybody that doesn't know it, like I don't know what you use as a hosting site, if anything.
I go back and forth with having now multiple shows. Like I do Libsyn and Buzzsprout.
Okay, I do Libsyn. I've done Libsyn for all of them. And when you submit it, it's like, what are these genres that your podcast falls under? And it's like, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Like, I hate lumping anything into anything. Like I said, I've ran marathons. I never considered myself a runner. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm a dude who's training for a marathon. Outside of that, I don't feel like... It goes back to me being a kid. I never felt like I fit in with a lot of people, or like I couldn't find my group. And then I went to Warped Tour in 2005, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of people here like me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess that does exist. You know what I mean? It's just like one of these weird things where it's just like I've never felt comfortable lumping myself in with, I make podcasts. Am I a podcaster? I guess, but I'm not like these podcasters. You know what I mean? I'm like, I kind of feel like I do my own thing. That's not only what I am.
Yeah.
So like this show isn't only what this genre is labeled it as. Like it can be more than that. And I don't like the idea of putting it in a box like that and then limiting what you can do with it. Like Bustown, I've been trying to like, I would love for somebody else to come in and guest host it. I'd love for it to kind of change up and evolve and keep being different and keep people entertained. And I don't want to get too, not bored with it, but I don't want people to get bored with it. So that's been one of those things where like when I say, if I get to 300, like, maybe at one point I'm going to wake up. Every now and then, especially the last year, I've had thoughts of like, I can just wrap the show up. Like it's been it's been 8 years in Columbus. I've told some tales. We were a nice little snapshot. And then somebody will be like, hey, this was fun. And I'm like, yeah, it was fun. I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
And it's that one little kick that keeps me going. And the idea of saying that's all it can be by putting it in this thing, or other people are doing it, so why would you do it? It's just like, well, I want to do it. So,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
I want to do my take on this.
I want to do my take on it.
Make my version of this. And something also that I sometimes think about is I'm like, if I'm not going to do it, who will?
Right.
Because there's also a chance that somebody will.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, well, wouldn't you rather have the fun and enjoyment of being like, yes, I made my version of this idea, rather than seeing someone else present something that's just similar enough where you're like, oh no, like they did it and I didn't. Not that it's about comparison.
Right.
But you will in turn beat yourself up over like, oh, well, they're doing the thing I wanted to do. And it's like, well, you can. You could. And so it's like not like holding that idea, and it is letting yourself like lean into like, I have this idea. This is my unique take on it. Yeah. Why wouldn't I just do it? And if it is similar to other things, that's okay. Yeah. Things can be inspired by other stuff. There's
most things are.
Exactly.
That's the weird thing. Everything I've created has been based off of something else that I've enjoyed, and I've either thrown my own little tweaks to it, just like I said with Root Beer Minute. For Sounds of Bustown, like the show structure was actually off of another episode I did early on the Clock, where I interviewed my brother-in-law because he made his own music. And I did 4 songs interstitched with our conversation. And that is the exact format when I'm interviewing bands on Sounds of Bustown, if I have a bunch of new music from them. But like, it's just been one of those things where it's just like everything with creation. Do you listen to Smodcast, Kevin Smith stuff at all?
I have, not actively, but
when he created the film Tusk, that was based off of his podcast,
back and forth
#Walrus, yes. And he's like, it's that easy. Like, people are like, is that easy? It's that easy to like, that's how you come up with that easy? He's like, yeah, man, that's it.
Literally, like the improv show. it's called Whose Life Is It Anyway?
Right.
It's literally
Obviously,
an ode to Whose
yeah,
Line,
yeah.
right? Because I have the love for that
Yeah.
show. But all it is taking a format like this, where
Yeah.
we're talking about a life story, and you cram it together with improv comedy games. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just
And
taking versions of other things and putting them together,
Right.
making
Seeing-
something
yeah.
slightly unique.
You
and
got
new.
chocolate in
Like,
my peanut butter. You got peanut butter in my chocolate. It's
What
one
is
of those.
this
Yeah.
now?
What is
Yeah.
this? But it's something a lot of people just don't understand. Like, that's how easy it is, and but that's also a curse because my brain realizes that now,
Absolutely.
and then everything I'm like, I could do something like that, but I'd do it this way. You know what I mean?
I'm
and
so
that,
bad
but
at it, yeah.
that also makes it hard for me to listen to other things and not be too heavily critiqueful. You know, I
Absolutely,
can criticize
yeah.
it too much.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm using the wrong words. I've never been good with that. I just looked right at the camera to apologize. So I'm listening to this going, did I say that right word? Anyways, but it's just that thing where it's just like I respect the other people doing the thing kind of like I'm doing in town. But again, I don't want to listen to it because it's like not the way I would do it. And I just don't care for the way they're doing it. So, you
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
And
it's no
again-
ill will. It's just like, that's just not for me.
But you're not in their audience.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
like the thing that they're doing
You're
works
you're
for other
exactly
people.
right.
And it's like,
I'm not in the audience because I'm doing my own thing over here,
Yep.
like their thing. So, and that took me. That was a hard lesson too. That's something I think everybody, for the most part, learns that. You go from your mid-teens to 20s hating things that you don't like because they're not the thing you like, and then at some point you just go, it's just not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's just not.
it's
for me.
actually not that big a deal
Yeah,
at all.
it's
That,
just-
that thing is not something
Yeah,
I like.
yeah.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's
It
for
can
those,
exist for those people.
Especially the more content you create, you're like, well, yeah, it's probably not for you. You know what I mean? You can look at them
Exactly.
and be like,
Yes.
yeah, it's probably not for you.
I'm sure there's somebody who's like not going to want to hear dumb improv comedy from me.
Right.
And they're gonna be like, no, I like the
Yeah.
2-hour life stories
Yeah.
with people. I don't want that.
And
But,
that,
whatever.
that goes
it's like,
that mentality goes back to once I get into the world, I could care less what happens to it.
yeah.
I don't
yeah.
care if people don't like it.
So where does all of this come from? Like, let's talk about childhood.
Oh,
what is childhood
boy.
like?
Let's
Like,
crack that one open.
are we like in a like creative, supportive childhood? Are we like how like because you have this imagination, you have this drive
yes.
to do things.
I was the youngest of 4 kids. And my siblings, my brother's almost 10 years older than me. We actually work together now. We get along, all of my siblings, we all get along really well together, but it's just, there was age gaps, and like my sister, who's closest to me, was 3 years older than me, but obviously we're not into the same thing. So I was by myself, playing with action figures and stuff a lot. So I'm coming up with a lot of storylines. I also hid in a lot of things because, not to get too Debbie Downer about it, but like, I don't have a great relationship with my parents because their life was turmoil. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. It took me a bit to realize, like, they obviously didn't know what the fuck they were doing. You know what I mean? As a kid, you look at your parents and you're just like, they have all the answers.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you get in your like mid-20s, you're like, they didn't know what the fuck was going on.
If
They were
I was
just
doing that right now, there's no way.
Dude, I always look back and be like, I don't really talk to my dad anymore, but like I look back to where I'm at versus where he's at. And at my age, he had already had 4 kids. You know what I mean? And I couldn't live
Yep.
that life. And it's just one of these things where there were, my parents have been married to each other 4 times. To each other.
Okay.
So,
okay.
you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
that'll give you a nice sum up of how things go and why I don't have that close of a relationship anymore. Because at a certain point when I got older, I realized I can't keep people in my life that are going to keep. Time is finite here, as we've been somewhat of a theme. You don't know how much time you got, and doing things you want to do is very precious. So that includes keeping people around you that make you feel good. You want to keep them close, and everybody else, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, I don't care if they're family or not. I don't want them around me. I don't want my time dampened with bad thoughts, sad thoughts, stuff like that. I had enough of that growing up. And so I don't really talk to them. But that led me to, with that childhood, again, it wasn't as bad as a lot of other kids had it, but, and I have to quit telling myself that, because that's how I react to everything. I'm like, well, it could have been worse. That's not a good thing for my brain. At some point, I'm going to snap.
And I do the same thing. I think it's easy to you compare yourself. You're like, well, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. People have it worse. It's like, but your experience still matters.
You're right.
So
it's just one of those things where I found myself burying myself in video games, playing with Legos all the time as a kid growing up, as I was growing up. So I created a lot of stories, a lot of stuff like that. And somewhere around high school, just out of high school, that's, I stepped away from a lot of friends and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I felt like I, went into that slump of just like, I don't have time or just the know-how to. I feel like technology kind of caught up with a lot of my dumb ideas. But as a kid, it was there. I was always making movies with friends and, just doing what I could. I would go to my grandma Marlene, who I just called the other day, who's celebrating 90-something birthday. Oh my gosh. I would go to hers once a month. Like, she lived in Marion and I was in Richwood, so it was 20 minutes away, but I would go up there for the weekend and we would go to Blockbuster and rent movies and video games and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of distractions from some of the home life stuff, but it was always that, like, for the longest time I wanted to make movies. And that's when I met you. I told you, I was like, dude, I always wanted to. I went freshman year through senior year in high school, I filmed all the basketball games because I thought this will look good on a college resume that I was the cameraman at all the basketball games. And I got to, at the end of high school, I was like, I don't want to fucking go back to school again. I'll get a job. I don't care about that. So I don't know. It's always been there, that idea to create, whether it was born out of me trying to deflect and hide from stuff, possibly. But I've always tried to keep a positive attitude about things. And that's where I learned I had to start shutting people out that weren't, helping me keep that positive attitude about stuff. Right. So do I get depressed? Heck yeah. Do I? I had a buddy of mine. We were talking about divorces and stuff like that, and he said something to the effect of like, does it get better? And I was like, yeah, it gets better, but like, I went for a run the other morning and I had an imaginary fight in my head with my dad about, what I mean? Like, it still lingers. I still dream about the house I grew up in. Like, if I ever win the lottery, I'm burning that house down. I'll pay for it to be done.
Heard it here first.
Yeah.
You're going to destroy this podcast and your childhood
exactly,
home.
Yeah. But I don't know. Are they distractions? They could be, but they're also outlets that I found myself giving me more joy. And so I think that was that's probably the best way to look at it. Like, what's going to give me more joy in this scenario?
Yeah. Yeah. So as you're growing up, you mentioned like kind of high school being, and of course, high school by default, that's formative years for a lot of people, right? So what was that kind of like phase that you were going through in high school where you're like, okay, I'm now more consciously making more of my own decisions. Yeah. I am now more aware of what home problems really are outside of just, I'm a child and there's arguments or whatever happening. I know I don't like that. Right. But now we're growing up. We're realizing like, okay, like, was it just like finding like the music scene? Was that kind of like the big
That's the thing I didn't really, I mean, I kind of found the music that I like. I think a lot of people do in high school where they kind of stay around to that. I graduated in 2004. So like that early aughts pop punk emo scene was like kind of like a safe haven for me. As problematic as some of those bands turn out to be, obviously. But still, like, just that sound and that environment, I found a nice outlet. Music really, especially, like, again, I don't have a talent to make it, but, like, it was one of those things where I could, like, put that on and feel better about things, or, escape is probably the better way of putting it. But again, like, my wife, I wasn't going to get away from that one, baby. We've been together for almost 20 years now, and we started dating when we were juniors. And so she was also her family, and it was weird. Like, when you first start dating somebody and getting involved with even just friends, and you start seeing how other families live compared to yours. When I first met her family and started hanging out, I thought it was very weird that all her aunts and uncles all got along. Like, her grandparents were friends with her other grandparents. Like, it was this weird thing where I'm like, how is this possible? In my family, you know what I mean? Like, it was just this weird, like, this family talks shit about this family, and, when they leave, this get together, everybody's going to talk shit about them, or like they didn't show up, so everybody's going to talk shit about them, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's this weird, when you start to see that, oh, I'm not in a good environment with my family. Like, you start seeing that there's better things, and you can kind of latch onto that. Like, I know I probably annoyed my in-laws because I was over there too much, but like, I didn't want to go home. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it was one of those things. So like, her and her family, wonderful, very supportive people. And I'm not saying all my family sucks. Again, my siblings and I are all very close. I just keep my parents at an arm's length. So,
Can we, and obviously,
but again, it goes back to that, like I told you, in your mid-20s, I realized I cut them some slack because like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Once you realize, again, it goes back to that. Like once you realize they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, then I go, oh, okay. All right, well, I'll give them a little bit. But at this point, they should know what the fuck they're doing, and shit's still going on. So, anyways.
Right. So obviously, share what you want to share.
Well, I'm an open book, bud.
But, when is the moment? You don't have to play it out like the scene, but like
start fucking what's interior shot.
Yeah, dialogue.
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah.
Like, when was the decision? What was it like when you officially decide, like, you know what, I need to remove myself from this environment? And when do you start keeping family at arm's length, or parents at arm's length? Like,
it's about when I move out, honestly.
Okay.
Like, which was about 2006, January 2006. I don't make an effort. You know what I mean? I still had a pretty good relationship with my mom at that point. Okay, one with my dad, but it wasn't great. But I didn't make at some point I stopped making an effort to like check in. And that just deteriorated throughout the years. And again, I'm finding myself more people to be involved with, to hang out with, and that are, more fun in my life. And so at the beginning of 2020, is where that's the last Christmas of 2019 was the last time I talked to my dad, aside from when my mom went in the hospital and he had to point me to the room that she was in. She didn't eat it. She had like low on potassium. She's fine. She's just an old lady who does not eat enough.
Right. Okay.
But again, I don't reach out. She's continuously gone back to him multiple times, and it's just like, all right, you should know better at this point, or you know what I mean? Like, you guys should both know better at this point. So at the end of 2020, another reason why I didn't drink a whole lot when I was a kid is because I was afraid I was going to be an alcoholic, because it runs in families. My father's a recovering alcoholic, and so that like prevented me from even really. I was just deathly afraid. My whole life I was afraid of becoming my father. I'm becoming more like my mother. I didn't realize I was shifting the other direction, which is why you'll get long-winded answers from me. I'm sorry, that's something my mom does. My wife will be like, wrap it up, Faith. But those are some of the good qualities, I think.
Makes for a good podcast.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But in January 2020, before shit hit the fan with the rest of the world, my father relapsed, and I was just like, I'm done. I don't need to. Again, it's always that you're waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under you with him, and so I just said, I'm good. And the rest of my siblings kind of joined together. The only problem with that is that they all have kids, and a big thing with my parents is they love being grandparents. Ever since I was 14, they've been very, very excited that they were going to be grandparents. So much so that we were at a Denny's, and my dad's like, you could start having kids if you wanted right now. And I was just like, can I practice a lot instead? So
I'm at a Denny's.
I'm at a Denny's right now. I'd rather not. What the fuck is up, Denny's? I want out of here. But that's always kind of taken top priority to them, especially since, in my opinion, since they became grandparents, as them being grandparents. And that's fine. Like, all of us kids turned out A-okay, which is nice. Again, I think we learned more of what not to do than what to do from them. But we're all in stable relationships. Everybody's doing really well, which is nice. I think they just lucked out with that, which might give them a false sense of security about how well they were as parents. But unless they were playing that game, then touche, I will say. That was their trick the whole time.
Some deep, dark magic trick.
We'll go about it this way. It's a long game. We'll make it work. But oh shit, I forgot where I was going with this. Where were we going with this? Sorry, I distracted myself.
You were explaining kind of everyone's family dynamics now.
Yes.
Work.
Okay. Yeah. So. So they all kind of banded together, but they all still kept in somewhat close contact because the kid situation, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't been in close contact, because I don't have a kid, so they don't really have to reach out to me to see anybody or know how anything's going on. You know what I mean? I didn't delete my mom from Facebook as a friend because then she'll call me more. You know what I mean? I ran that math in my head. She messaged me a month ago, and she's like, did you delete me as friends? I didn't see it. I was like, I would never delete you as friends. Yeah. Because then you're going to get a hold of me more about what I'm up to and what I'm doing. If you see it on social media, then you know what's going on. You know I'm safe. You know I'm doing all right. So I'm just trying to avoid all these conversations. So,
Right.
So yeah, it's been pretty hardcore about it since January 2020, but it was building. You know what I mean? It was 4 years before that, 4 years before. You know what I mean? It was, in 2004, my dad went missing for 2 weeks. He was on a bender, and you know what I mean? Nobody saw him. So it was building over time to where I was just going to be like, at some point, I have to, for my own mental health, cut this out.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you to cut this out. I'm saying cut this out of my life. Cut that. No. To cut this out of my life if I'm going to continue forward being stable.
Right.
And somewhat mentally healthy.
Yeah.
I'm about as mentally healthy as I think I can be without seeing a therapist. But guess what? I'll probably end up seeing a therapist at some point.
You know what?
So,
not a bad goal, to be honest.
it'll happen. So, but yeah, that was pretty much the childhood was a shaky one. But, there's there's things I love about my parents that, like, my dad had a great sense of humor when I was a kid. And that was one of my favorite things about him. And that was one of the things I was glad to kind of get from him, to kind of see the humor in things that either some people may not see or just, the oddball stuff. Like, I would have never known about, like, Andy Kaufman and SCTV and all that stuff, and Kids in the Hall and stuff like that. If it weren't for him letting me watch all that stuff when I was a kid. So all that stuff really helped shape that mentality. And I luckily just can kind of block out, I guess, some of the other stuff or not take. So again, it was a weird childhood, but
yeah.
It made me, I'm at where I am now. I never live with regrets. As long as I'm in a happy place, then everything that I got where I'm at right now, like me sitting in front of you talking in this dumb suit and these fake glasses, like it's all been worth it at this point.
Yeah. So I feel like I've almost kind of seen a common thread, even, and I know these are weird things to compare, but it's like the childhood and family thing and the way that you were describing how you handle that situation is honestly very similar to how we have been talking this entire time about creative and ideas. Is like, as long as I can just do the thing and experience the thing, I'm not necessarily going to attach myself to one particular aspect of it of like, oh, if I make this podcast, it has to be gigantic or I don't want to do it.
Right.
In the same way that taking a lot of these negative things from growing up, you could latch on to that. Yeah. And you could be like, well, this sucked and it was shitty and I'm the way that I am now because of this. Blah, blah.
I had every excuse. Like, you know what I mean? I could have just fucked off. But that's my mentality. I don't think that wouldn't have been good. I still have this weird sense of, with all the dumb stuff that I do, I still freak out about doing the wrong thing, about making bad moves, about hurting people. That is still something I've always been. I haven't done enough in life because I've been afraid to make moves because of just a general fear. My mom raised me to question everything, and not in like a cool like fuck authority way, but like that could kill you. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, right. Don't do that. That might hurt you. And so I live this whole life of like, okay, I'll hang back. And for my work, I get to travel a bit. And my brother, he works at the same place I do. And when he first started traveling a whole bunch, or I started talking to him when I first started traveling about like his travel stuff. And he's like, yeah, I don't look at my stuff anymore. I was like, why is that? He goes, because when mom finds out that we're traveling, she's going to ask you every detail about where you're traveling, just so she's kind of up to speed on it. So he goes, I just give the Cliff Notes. So that's been like okay. You know what I mean? Like the little things that I find out about. But it goes back to that like, and I know she's got our best interests at heart at that point. She just want to make sure we're all right. But it's just I freak out too much about stuff, and I have that anxiety of like, oh, this is gonna go bad and this is gonna go poor. I remember I was traveling. I was in Portland, Oregon for work. It was super fucking exciting. I was there by myself. I was there for a week, and I'm just like, I got a rental car, and I'm driving on the highway, and it hit me. I'm like, I'm 26. And I'm on the other side of the country by myself. And it was one of these things where it's like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but I'm like, look at me doing it. I'm on my own right now. Look at this. And it's just that, like, I let go a little bit of the fear at that point, let go a little bit of the anxiety. And now it's just, it's second nature at this point to be like, oh, I'm over to this place all by myself. Okay, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like there's no, it's just once I get through the first thing and realize that it's not so bad, but that it's still me telling my brain, we'll be fine.
Right.
We'll be fine.
When like I feel like the cool thing I'm noticing is, again, in the comparison of family stuff, life stuff, creative stuff, whatever. Yeah. I felt like I feel like you've found this ability to not fully attach yourself to, again, like I was saying earlier, like one aspect of something, which I think a lot of people do.
I can emotionally unattach myself to anything at any moment's notice.
Right.
Well, like a fucking light switch.
Well, it's like,
I will switch it off.
I think you understand how to take a percentage of something that you need or want from the thing.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, it's all or nothing. Because I think a lot of people do that, right? You hear... An easy example is like when I'm talking to somebody about a podcast or an interview or something, a lot of people go to, oh, well, I don't like that person who's on that show. They're super hype. They're super whatever. Right. I'm just not even going to listen to it. Yeah. It's like, well, I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that person either. But this one thing they say is the thing that I take away from it that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
And so it's like taking that micro example and putting that into life in general. Like that's at least to me something that I'm hearing in your story is the ability to like, yes, you're detaching yourself. Yes, you're moving on. You're doing these things. You're just trying ideas, but you're doing them with the intention of that small percentage.
Yeah.
Like
I'm trying to take the best moments out of things
and
focus on those. Cause that was a hard thing as a kid was like, it's not always going to be like this. You know what I mean? I had to keep telling myself that. Was I suicidal as a teenager? Yes. At one point I was. So it's just that thing where it's just like, I got to give it another shot. I got to see what else I can do, you know what I mean? What can I learn from this? What can I take from this? That is a small moment of even the bad shit, like the shitty job I had after I got laid off of my first like big job when I got out of high school. I was trying to see what the benefits were. It's like, well, I'm not there anymore, but maybe this will lead to something else. And a year later, I got the job where I've been for the last 14 years. So it's just like trying to figure out what you can learn and what you can take from that experience too. I don't want to do the fucking Bill Clinton thing, but like what you can learn and take from every experience, good or bad, and how you can focus it, dial in on the good shit. What's the good thing about that? So
is that the advice you would share with somebody who, like, if they were sitting in similar situations to, and I'm saying like maybe anything that you've experienced, maybe they are experiencing that, like, I don't know how to deal with this family thing. And no, I know you're not going to say, do it exactly like I did it, because of course no one gives advice like that.
I would say don't be afraid to cut them off. I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on family. Like, I've watched 9 Fast and Furious movies. Anybody can be family. It doesn't have to be your actual family. If I've learned anything from the Fast and Furious movies. Bet you didn't think I was going to bring that up.
Sure
I didn't either. But it's just this thing where it's just like, don't waste time on people who aren't respecting your time. Don't waste time on people who don't have your best interests at heart. And I know it's hard to like seek that out or like tell that from like the interaction, but like somebody who's hurt you multiple times, like a significant other or a close family member or anything like that, it's just like, just fucking let them go. Like it's not up to you at that point. They're not gonna be a different person. You can only do so much. And so you can take, the nice things that were from that and use that as somewhat of a template for the next thing. But you also you yourself don't deserve to be treated like that. So it's just about that, knowing when to let go, I think, and the appropriate steps to walk away from.
Yeah. Like when is it enough after, like, I've put in so much effort to try and solve this.
Yes.
Maybe it's actually not in my control. I've done my part. I've done enough of what I can do.
Right.
And maybe I just can't give more to this.
Exactly.
Because it's actually taking.
It's hurting me.
So much. Yeah.
And I have to draw a line at some point. Otherwise, what the fuck's going on?
So another thing I'd love to know is like, and this can be a creative thing. This can be just life in general. Like, we're sitting here now, we're talking about the family thing of like, hey, I've cut the ties where I need to cut the ties. I have the contact I need to have. And we're also talking about all the creative stuff of like, all right, I've got this podcast network, all these shows. I love doing them. Looking back at all of this, what would you say is like, what was the toughest time frame where you were like, damn, this thing right now, all of this absolutely sucks. And I don't know if I want to do any of this anymore.
When I was in middle school, if we're just comparing all of life. 7th grade, I was upstairs watching a VHS copy of The Wedding Singer on our brand new VHS player we got from the furniture store after I got my brand new bed. And in the middle of the movie, my mom said, Bill, come on, we're leaving. And I said, why is that? And she goes, we're leaving your dad. He's drinking again. And I went, what? And she goes, yeah, we're going to your grandma's. And I go, which grandma? And she goes, my mom's. And I go, I want to stay with Dad. I did not like my other grandma.
Okay.
And from then on, I was like, well, somebody has to stay with him. Like, he's just, the moment my mom passes away, I don't think my dad's going to be around that much. Anyways, I ended up living with my dad then for the next 6 months.
Really?
With just me and him. And at one point, he drank so much the night before, he woke up. This was in just right at the beginning of 8th grade. He woke up and he's like, hey, I'm not going to be able to take you to school today. I don't feel that well. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just sit at home and play games. I just sat there and played Metal Gear Solid VR missions. Yeah. And then an hour later, he called me into the bedroom to call an ambulance. And I was just like, oh my God. And, that from that moment, just panic and all that stuff. So I called an ambulance, and then I called my mom at her work. And, she came and got me, and we went to the ER. And he had drank so much the night before that, it was a bit of a wake-up call for him. My parents ended up getting together a month after that. He realized he went into a program and stuff like that. And everything was fine for a bit. And then, a few years later, he fell off the wagon and they separated again. And then at that point, my niece was born. And he did the same thing when she was a kid. And I was just like, this guy doesn't give a fucking shit about anybody in this family but himself. And listen, I am fully aware about the disease of alcoholism. But there comes a point in your life where the moment you're still prioritizing yourself over everyone else, that's the bigger problem. Especially people that depend on you and stuff like that. And my niece and him, she was 1 or 2, but they were highly inseparable. You know what I mean? She was again, my parents love grandkids. So right. For the fact that she was old enough at that point to kind of see it, was just, a bit too much. So that period there in high school, there's a lot of highs. Again, I've been with my wife since then, but she's seen a lot of it too. You know what I mean? She's been in it. So that was really a rough patch when I was 16-ish. That was when I was, and this could have been the Accutane. I was on Accutane in high school, and they said the side effect was suicidal thoughts. Could have been part of that, but that was a pretty dark place that I was in. I honestly, at that point, didn't think I was going to see 17. I've never told anybody about this stuff. I honestly never thought I was going to see 17 because I thought I was just going to end, because I was just done with it all. I was tired of it. I was just like, what's the fucking point of all this if this is just this fucking stress I have to live through? And then, something clicked. It just, I kept moving, and turned out so far so good. Again, bumps along the way, but
right. Now you might have already maybe explained this in an earlier thing or something. But what do you feel like looking back at all of this stuff, carrying it into any portion of your life? What do you feel like the biggest maybe lesson that you have learned, or the biggest thing you've just taken away in general from all of that you've experienced?
Focus on your happiness. Are you happy? Are you not? When I got laid off from the one job and I found another job, I hated it. And I realized, I will do anything other than this because I am just not happy. And I don't care if I'm taking a pay cut. I don't care what it's paying me. I just want to be happy again. And that was, I went home and complained to my wife. We weren't even married then. She didn't have to stay with me. I complained every day about that job. And then I got this new job, and I didn't say anything. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm happy again. You know what I mean? And being happy gave me the mental stability to then flex those creative muscles again. You know what I mean? I didn't have that. I could give a shit about anything at that point. I just wanted to go home and bury myself in a video game that I didn't have to think about going to work the next day. Mm-hmm. So having that mentality of just I don't care what I'm doing, just let's try to be happy. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's literally got me this far. So I'll just keep riding that train.
Yeah. So what is next?
What is next?
I know we've talked about, new shows that you're starting up, but is the goal I just want to stay happy and be able to creatively fulfill myself however I want? Or are there like larger goals of like, I want to see the network become this, or I actually want to do this thing outside of podcasting and go into filmmaking again, whatever. Like, what's looking at the horizon, looking at like.
I just like having. I don't know what's next, and I kind of like that. You know what I mean? I realize, again, it goes back to being a kid and getting my hopes up with something, and then it doesn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and my hopes get dashed, or, something falls through, or my parents are going to stay together this time. No, they're not. Oh, shit. You know what I mean? It's just, it goes back into that, like, the more expectations I have for stuff, and the more I put stuff on a pedestal, the harder I feel when it gets dropped out. So I like where I'm at now, where it's just like I'm doing what I want. Like I said, with Sounds of Bustown, I'd love to hand that show off to somebody else before I just say I don't want to do it anymore, because I think it's fun, and I think I've gotten a lot. I'm not trying to like brag or boast about it, but I've gotten a lot of people around town who've been like, no, that's a great institution. Like, it's been fun. Like, I think that podcast is for other musicians around town.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of them want to see something like that keep going. And if I could hand that off to somebody else before I just go, I don't have the energy or time for it anymore. You know what I mean? I want to do it justice. I want to do it right. And so where I go next is hopefully something that, like I said, I'm starting up that podcast with my wife. Maybe I just do that from now. You know what I mean? Like, it's that thing where it's just, I don't know what's next, and I like that. Yeah. Like, I've got goals for my work, my career there, and we'll see how that plays out. But, if I get that stuff, I'll definitely, if that goal turns out, then I'll definitely have to dial back the podcast stuff a little bit. But that's, I think, a trade I'm willing to make, because I'll still be able to do. We literally bought a house in 2019, and my only thing with the spec for the house was that I need a room where I can do podcast stuff.
Yeah.
And so I created a whole studio in my house, or in my room, in this podcast room. And the house is way bigger than what we needed. We don't have kids. We're not having kids. Like, it's been that thing where, why did we get this house? It was like, well, it was a good location. I can walk to a movie theater, which rules. Like, that has been so nice. Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of stuff I don't know what's going to happen, but, like, I've got the means to, like, do what I want and kind of move where I want. Now I feel like I'm rambling again.
No, you have set things up to where you can allow yourself to just flow through the happiness that you want in the moment.
I don't have to get bogged down with anything.
Yep.
I can cut loose if I need to. There is some attachment still to a lot of that stuff, because, again, like, even though I'm pumping these shows out, I still enjoy it, and I still want to make sure, it's my baby. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure if it moves on to something else, it's done properly. And like, I've had podcasts fail. You like we talked about, you start recording, is this okay? Maybe it's going to fizzle out, or you get like 10 episodes in, you're like, wow, we just it just kind of fizzled out. Right, but I'm grateful for the time that I had, and but you want everything to kind of have, I guess, closure is a big thing for people, and I'm kind of cool with just not having that closure if it comes up, because I'm just like, we're just moving. We're going to keep moving. Mm-hmm. So. Right.
Okay. Well, dude, before we end up wrapping up.
Oh, shit.
I've got a last handful of questions for you.
All right.
Do you want to try a couple new things here on the show?
Hell yeah. I prepped for the one, but yes.
Well, of course, yeah. You know the one that's
I know coming. The one. I'm a listener.
But I've got two different ones for you. Yeah. Some new ones that I actually want to give a shot here on the show.
Yeah. Episode 69, baby.
We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want. We're getting sexy now.
So.
Let's bring you back up, folks.
And we're coming back up.
We're coming back up.
So I actually want to start giving the guests a chance. If there's one big, like, burning thing, it can be whatever you want, or it can be nothing at all. I actually want to start giving the guests a chance to ask me something, if there's something that's been on their mind the entire time. Because I've started to notice a trend, like, after we stop recording, they're like, man, I wanted to ask you so many things. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll start giving them the platform. I'll throw the table over to them. Give them the floor. Is there anything?
What's your end game with this show? Do you think that far ahead? Did you have a plan in place when you started the show, and has that evolved or pivoted, or?
You know what? I feel like my plan has been the same since the beginning.
Oh, that's good.
And now, of course, like we talked about earlier, do I want numbers to grow? Absolutely. Do I want more people to listen and love it and all this sort of stuff, and have Brad Pitt on it?
We didn't even talk about our Promo S advertisements, people. We both do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have shouts of Promo S. Yes. And do I want to collect more things like that? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see it grow in those ways, and it's, become a source of income, like all those sort of things. Those are amazing things. Right.
Yeah.
For me, the plan and the goal has always been, I want it to, if it's even one person, do for somebody else what a different show did for me.
Yeah.
And it was the idea of pulling the curtain back on people's stories, realizing that we connect a lot more than what we may think.
Yeah.
We're a lot more similar than we are different, even if it seems like it sometimes.
Yeah.
And just the power in hearing someone's real story.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you, for example, someone could look at you and be like, he has 10 podcast shows, and he just does whatever he wants all the time, blah, 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 blah. He must have just had it easy all the time. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But then, okay, cool. Let's hear the actual story of
Right.
the things that you've experienced
Yeah.
and been through that have led you.
It's a disease podcast. They are. You learn how to do one.
You just can't
Can't stop.
But that really is, I think that honestly is my answer. Yes, by default, I want it to grow and get bigger and continue to do those things. But like, for me, the win and almost the goal is met anytime somebody tells me like, dude, I listened to that one episode with so-and-so.
The fucking best feelings.
And yes.
Like I said, I don't care if people listen to it or not, but the moment somebody tells me that episode was super fucking fun, I'm like, oh,
like I
baby.
connected with that thing.
Yeah.
I learned about that thing, or I felt like I was through something similar that they were, and hearing them explain it made me feel inspired or just better or whatever. It's like leaving anyone with that feeling. That's honestly always the end goal.
I was at Poser Fest. You watch Poser and all that stuff? Okay.
Yes.
So they had Poser Fest at A&R in the basement, and I got invited to podcast there. So I was rolling around like Lennon in the movie with my headphones and mic and sticking in people's faces. And I talked to Noah Last, one of the directors, and we talked for like 10 minutes. I'm just chit-chatting with him. We're just talking about stuff. And, it's all in there in the episode. And as soon as I cut it, he goes, man, you're really good at this. And I was just like, oh, my God.
Like, whoa.
Thank you. And I'm just like, that feels so fucking good. Because I'm like, I'm not putting any thought into it. I don't feel like I'm trying. But
doing
like
the
for
thing you
somebody,
like to do.
I'm just doing the thing I like to do.
Yep.
Talk to people about what they did. And for him to say that, I was just like, I'll keep going for another 100 episodes. You know what I mean? It was just that moment where it's just like, yeah, you have those moments that, like I said, keep kicking the rock. You keep going.
Yep.
So,
100%.
yeah.
We're in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah.
Other question for you.
Yeah.
I want you to give me a question to ask my next guest. What is something you would like for me to ask them?
So I'm gonna go with something that tends to like move happy. So I think there's too much negativity on the internet, and in the world in general. So I want to know what their happiest moment has been.
I love it.
Okay.
And now I'm excited to ask that. And I don't know, folks, if you're listening to this, you've got to tune in to the next episode, I guess, if you want to know the answer to that.
Episode 70, because this one was 69.
69, in case you forgot.
Nice.
Well, in that case, it's down to our final question.
All right.
And like you said, you knew what's coming.
I know. I prepped.
You've prepped.
Did my
you've
homework.
Gotten ready. So right now, I want you to pretend like everyone in the world is listening to us speak right now. They can hear you on the other end of that mic. You've prepared a speech, or I don't know, a solid one-liner about 69 or something. I don't know.
Is there a solid one-liner about 69 that has not been said at this point?
I don't know. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 6'9".
Nah.
So right now, everybody can hear you.
Yeah.
You know the gist. You know what we're going for. You get a live mic that's attached to everyone, everywhere, and you get to speak to them. What is it that you want to share with them? What is it that you want them to hear?
So everybody that usually does this does something fairly inspirational and very nice and pleasant. I have a mystery that I need solved, and I need people to reach out to me if they have an answer and can solve this mystery.
Yes.
I was at my niece's softball game in like 2014, and I'm standing in line. I'm in my hometown. I'm back in that place. I'm standing in line to get popcorn, as I do at all baseball games that I went to and sporting events. And I'm going to give you all the details so you have all the information. I'm standing there. I've got a flat cap on. This is when I started wearing hats again. My head's too big. You don't notice this from the camera. My head is too big. I wear like a 7 3/4 fitted hat.
Okay.
It's a big noggin. but I've got this flat cap on. I was like, finally, a hat that fits my fat head. And I've got my fake Ray-Bans on. I bought them when my wife and I were on a cruise. I call them my Roy Bonds. But I'm standing there, so I've got the look. I've got the Wayfarers and the flat cap. I'm listening to, whatever music. I'm not listening in line, but I've got that aesthetic. I could be, in a ska band or some shit. Jeans, whatever, T-shirt. I'm standing there, and I'm looking at my phone, and I look up, and these two girls are laughing, and they're looking at me, and I'm just like, do I have something on me? What's going on? And one of them just goes, it's called Bruno Mars. And then they both start laughing again and walk away. I don't know what any of that meant, but it was directed towards me, and I vaguely knew who Bruno Mars was at the time, but I did not, and that's why I told you what I was dressed like. I was not dressed like Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars does not wear like a flat Irish cap like he's about to fucking get in a pit of a Dropkick Murphys show. Like, I was not dressed like Bruno Mars. So for them to look at me and go, it's called Bruno Mars, laugh together and walk away, I was dumbfounded. I went back to my seat and sat next to my sister and my family, and I was just like, I don't know what just happened. And it has haunted me. So if anybody knows what that might have, if you're listening to this and you were the person that said it, obviously you are listening to this because I've got a mic and I'm talking to everyone. I'm at William Mount on Instagram. What the fuck did you mean by that?
Wow. I've never ended the show on a mystery before.
I'm like, everybody's like inspirational quotes and very nice. I'm just like, I've got a thing that has been burnt and eating at me.
Do you think? No, I don't want to immediately give you an answer, but now you've got me wondering. Before we say bye here, do you think that they did you happen to look like you didn't know what was going on, and then do they think you were using the music app on your phone to figure out what was was Bruno playing?
No, I don't think so. It's a small town baseball field. You know what I mean?
Bruno Mars.
It's a little baseball park. It's not like, there's another teenager in the box going, all right, so I was up to bat and they're going to hit that. There was no Bruno Mars playing. And so for me to I mind my own business, people. When I'm in public, I keep to myself. You see me at shows. If I'm not hanging out with anybody, I'm standing in a corner, not offending anybody. Again, it goes back to the first thing I think I said on here is that I don't want to be a creep. So I keep to myself. Again, my eyes I'm not lingering too long on anything. I'm very self-conscious about this because for some reason, I just don't want people to think I'm a creep.
Fair.
So for me to I just heard giggling and I was like, oh, maybe I missed something funny. You know what I mean? I'm looking up because I'm like, I want to have a laugh. I like to laugh, and they're just staring at me. And then it's called Bruno Mars. What were they in line for? They just walked away. They didn't even need it. They didn't even get
long were
candy
they
or
watching
popcorn.
you?
I have no idea.
Wow, the Bruno Mars mystery.
If you had titles for shows,
the Bruno Mars
the lead up to this.
Was it Bruno Mars or whatever the country guy was earlier? That would be the
Oh
title.
yeah, Chris. Yeah.
That's what I thought you were gonna go. I need to know Chris Gaines.
I've figured all that out. I just got to get that out. But yeah, if anybody, again, everybody is listening to this, or the person who said it is listening to this because his microphone is tapped into the world.
That's right. They can
fucking just tell me what you meant.
Let them know,
please.
Damn.
Did they even remember it?
What a mystery.
Probably not. But it stuck with me, and I'll take it to my urn.
Wow. I just want to know.
Just before you start the incinerator, do you have an idea what this meant? I'm going to haunt this earth now.
It's called Bruno Mars. Happens to me.
Yeah.
I have done all these other things, but
please.
Maybe that's a new podcast idea.
I don't need any more of this. You shut your mouth.
Well, since you don't need any more, I'd love to give you the room now to what do you want to tell anybody about as we close
if you've
things
listened
down?
to me for the last hour,
almost 2 hours.
Yeah, we're dialing in on hour 45 or whatever. And you like me enough, and you want to experience more of what I have to offer. You can search for Loudcat Podcast on the Apple Podcast app, and the Loudcat Podcast will show up. You can get shows like Sounds of Bustown, Drams and Jams, Podcast and a Half Shell, Sitting with Cy, Revolution Rosies. Sorry to everybody that I'm forgetting right now. Or if you are curious about Root Beer Minute, you can go on Instagram or Twitter at Root Beer Minute. You can see my root beer reviews. Actually, I have a quick like go back to the question where you asked me what like goals or like
Yeah.
where I see the future.
Absolutely.
I would love to host a talk show. And so one of the future seasons of Root Beer Minute will be a talk show where I'll have a desk set up and I'll have guests on. And again, episodes will only be a minute long, so it'll be absolutely fucking ridiculous.
I love it.
I've always wanted to host a talk show. Anyways,
think
if
you
you can help pull that off, I'd love to host one in Columbus. There's, just you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at William Mount. I don't really tweet that much, but, every now and then I come up with a doozy. And then Instagram is just a lot of podcast stuff and photos of my cats and dogs.
Beautiful.
So, and I want to give a special thanks to everybody that I do have a podcast with. You're all wonderful in my book. You guys devote a lot of your time to hanging out with me, and I really appreciate that. And another shout out to my wife for putting up with all of what you just heard. She has to live with that.
I love it.
So,
Dude, we finally made it happen.
we made it happen. 69.
Episode 69 is officially
I was at work today,
in
fucking
the books.
buzzing.
You were just like, I can't wait later today. You have no idea what
I
I'm
pulled it
about
off.
to do.
I pulled it off.
A year and a half build up.
Yeah.
A year and a half worth
Yeah.
of planning.
I remember the reaction on your face. You're like, I guess? Like, you were just
Like,
like,
oh,
yeah, I
okay.
guess nobody's ever asked for a specific spot.
Yeah,
but-
because when you were like, I have a very specific ask, I'm like, oh, okay, what
Yeah.
could it be? And I want episode 69. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because when I messaged Christine after her episode, I was like, dude, that episode was so good. I love hearing you on podcasts. She used to have a podcast called Babes to Know. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I produced like an episode or two for her. So fun, so great. And I wish she would do more podcast stuff. And that's when I was like, I heard you on that podcast and you need more stuff. She goes, do you know Ross? I was like, oh yeah, we're in touch. She goes, yeah, I figured you might be on the show. I was like, oh, I've already called. I claim my spot.
I'm coming up.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
coming
you
up. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Don't worry.
Like a child, I claim my spot for
I
the
have
dumb number.
Purposely not been on
Yeah.
yet because number 69,
Yeah.
it's coming in the pipeline.
I
We're
can
gonna
actually
make-
retire from podcasting now that when you put this out.
Is this the big news?
You'll see.
This is
No,
it?
you'll see me cease to exist off the internet now.
And I am
yeah.
done.
Sorry, everybody.
Scene.
Gone.
All
Yeah.
I wanted was episode 69 on another show.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't need
yeah.
any of
I've
this
made
anymore.
my own 69s over the years. I'm looking right at you, listener, watcher, voyeur. I've made my own,
Yeah.
a bunch of my own 69s over the year, but I've never been invited to a 69. So,
But we made it happen.
but we made it happen.
You
I love
came on for my
Thank
69,
you.
and
Yes.
I appreciate it.
I'll never miss a 69.
Dude,
There.
thank you so much, man.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, what an absolute blast of a conversation that was. Of course, in my opinion, over a year in the making, as William ever so patiently waited for episode 69 of this show to roll around. In all seriousness, though, I do appreciate William sharing all the things that he did in this episode. While we had a lot of fun, with many of his stories, it's always cool to me when someone does feel comfortable enough to really open up and share the details of their story. And kind of in a way that they've never really shared with anyone before. That's truly what this platform and show is truly all about. So if you want to follow all that William is up to, we talked about a lot. There's a lot going on. You heard us talk about it all in that episode. You can find all the podcasts he produces by following at Loudcat Podcast. Of course, directly follow at Bustown Sounds or William himself at William Mount. You can also follow me at Who's Ross Tyson. More importantly, though, you can find and follow the show at WYDH Pod. That's on Instagram, and there's a Twitter if you want that. I truly barely use it, but it's there. But of course, if you really want to help out and support the show, there's a few other ways that you could do that. You could hit that MFN subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you're listening to this on. It would also be very cool if you toss up a rating or review wherever you can for the show as well. Toss some stars on there. Leave a written review if you really dig the show. If you want to keep up with all these stories in video form, both these full-length stories and the shorter topic-based 15-minute Fridays, you can subscribe to my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ross Tyson. That's where you can find every single one of these in video form. So do all the things, feed the algorithm, tell somebody about it, whatever you can do, help spread the word of this show and get these stories heard in whatever form. It helps a whole lot more than what you may know. So support if you can, support if you want, but even if you don't, as always, thank you so very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, thanks for looking, and I hope you stick around for more because you know how it goes. I'll be back next episode with a brand new guest that you may or may not know of, but with a story that I guarantee you for sure never heard.